Hey, everyone. All right, good evening, everyone. My name is DaShawn Usher, and I'm the Program Officer, Communities of Color at GLAAD, and the founder of Mobilizing Our Brothers Initiative. And I'll be your moderator tonight, and I'm happy to be here for today's panel. The panel is hosted by Southern AIDS Coalition in partnership with GLAAD. And Southern AIDS Coalition has been doing a series of conversations in lieu of having their in-person conference, Saving Ourselves Symposium, SOS 2020, which centers the lives and experiences of Black LGBTQIA plus folks. So tonight's panel is centered around Black LGBTQ plus in the arts and culture. And I'm joined by Randy Bowden Jr., fashion creative and model, Anastacia McCleskey, Broadway vet, singer, writer, and activist, and Joshua Keith, dancer, singer, actor, and model. So welcome, everyone. I'm most excited about today's panel because there's so many fresh faces that we haven't seen before, particularly inside of this space. And I'm thrilled that each of you all hail from the South. So let's start there. So where are you from and how has the South shaped your specific question? Let's start with
Oh, start with me? Okay, cool. So I know that the South has definitely placed moral code inside of just how I operate day to day. I also feel that me being from the South also gave me a different perspective with transitioning into a market that will make you, marketable to be competitive in what you want to do. So, because I literally had to, figure out how to get out of Alabama to New York. So, it's definitely an experience, and it's one that I don't take for granted at all.
And what part of Alabama are you from?
I'm from Birmingham. I went to college in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, which is about 45 minutes away. And my family was originally from Demopolis, Alabama. So if the country people really know what Demopolis is. So, cows, pigs, chickens, all of that fun stuff. So.
All right. Anastacia?
Hi. I'm originally from Nashville, Tennessee. I've lived up here in New York for about 18 years, pretty much half of my life in Nashville, half of my life here. But finding my creative voice down there, it wasn't very hard for me. Nashville, Tennessee, it's Music City. That's what it's known for: country music, gospel music, Christian music. So I kind of had one leg up with that, and I was able to perform following in my middle brother's footsteps in certain local theater productions down there. We have the Tennessee Performing Arts Center. So that kind of gave me my foundation in theater, which is what I primarily do, and kind of gave me that confidence. There were still other things to work through, of course, as far as being a Black little girl in the theater community down in the South. But that was my foundation, performing at Tennessee Performing Arts Center, National Children's Theater, and just that theater world in Nashville.
And Joshua.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so I'm originally from Winston-Salem, North Carolina. It's not down south, like far south, but it's southern enough. But I didn't have, I wasn't aided in that when I was growing up about LGBT and Q and activism and just the culture of all of that. Growing up in the South and growing up in North Carolina, it was actually frowned upon, and it was just basically this just wasn't something you wanted to participate in. Sadly, that's how it was referred to as I was coming up. So, as far as culture is concerned, no, I was not brought up in any way that celebrated that part of me, which is a very integral part. So moving to New York was, it was great. And it has been ever since so far. So I think being in a place that aids who you are and aids who you are as you grow is a good thing. So yeah, New York is great, but originally from North Carolina.
So with all of you all having your roles in starts and being birthright in the South, how were you able to, one, protect your, like actually perfect your craft while you were doing it? So before you got to New York, like what were you doing in Alabama and Tennessee and in North Carolina for other like Black queer folks that might be living there now? What did that community look like?
I go.
Go ahead.
Oh, all right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So, well, in Alabama, as you know, it's no fashion market pretty much whatsoever. And I remember changing my major from violin performance my freshman year of college, and I was scrambling for what can I do, or what what I want to do for the rest of my life. And I really sat down and thought about what I could see myself doing for the rest of my life, and that was fashion and style of some sort. So I kind of did my due diligence and kind of figuring out how I can market myself out of a market that really didn't exist. So blogs weren't as big as they are now back then. I started a website. I literally would go to the Salvation Army and the Goodwill and like buy all these like blazers and pants and denim shirts and linen pants, like anything I could get my hands on that I thought was style. And I would literally shoot it. Like me and my brother would take our camera and, we barely knew what we were doing when I look back on the images now. But, that got us eyes outside of Alabama that, didn't really know that talent like that existed in our state. So it definitely helped me. It got me on with Marie Claire magazine and all these other things that got me attention that helped me catapult myself out of Alabama. And then also driving back and forth to Atlanta, which is about 2 hours away from Birmingham, Alabama, to like push out shoots and shoot with photographers that shot models. So you just kind of have to figure out what you can do for yourself to push yourself forward out of where you are.
No, definitely. Joshua or Anastacia, anything you want to add?
Oh, yeah. I being from Nashville, I ended up going to performing arts schools, which I think really helped me hone my craft. It gave me the confidence there because I met other kids like myself, and I met other kids that looked like me, that were Black and brown, that were from my community. And then at the same time, I was also discovering my sexuality. And in the early 90s, mid 90s, late 90s, by the time I was in high school, the world was different. And so in the South, while people were encouraging me to create art and I was in all these great programs, nobody was like, hey, what's going on here? How do you feel about yourself? Who are you? How do you identify? We didn't have the language that we have now then. And if they had it up north or out west, it definitely wasn't in the South. So I think a saving grace for me was having parents that supported me in the arts, but then finding my community within those art schools, Wharton Arts Magnet, National School of the Arts, and finding those kids. We always called ourselves the land of misfit toys, and that's how we felt, and we found our community as kids. So I think that truly gave me the confidence within my craft then to be able to tell stories that I wanted to tell and started writing.
Yeah, I can just agree with that. I mean, being in the South, again, I'm from Winston-Salem, North Carolina. We had the North Carolina School of the Arts, and that's it. Okay, so that you can either go there or you don't, so we didn't really have all of that. We still don't, which is kind of sad. Although there are some universities now that have, like Wake Forest University, I think has a dance program, which is just very recent. That's just of a few years ago. So I left North Carolina very early, and I went to Howard University in DC, and I studied theater there. And I really just soaked up the craft and soaked it up as much as I could. When I was a kid, of course, I did plays in school, and that was the door opener. I was like, okay, this is what it is. I love this. I'm about this life. But there was nothing there to aid me in it. There was no way I could have gotten better because there was no resources for that. But when I moved to DC, it was also more of a place of acceptance. I come from the South in a very Christian, sheltered background when I was a kid. And so I think parents just did what they could do to protect us because, again, we didn't have the language, which is so key. We didn't have the language, So I think just positioning yourself accordingly. So me moving from North Carolina to Washington, D.C. prepared me for New York, you know? So I just think positioning yourself accordingly is key. And if you're too young, then find like a guidance counselor to help you, or someone in the family that you can trust with that information, and they can help steer you, because you have to have a plan when you come from the South and you're not given the theater district in Times Square.
Yeah, no, it's so interesting. So I'm from the South also, but the South Bronx. And so I I actually went to school in Tennessee, Middle Tennessee State University. And so I did the reverse of what you all did. And so I left New York. But I also like am not a like singer or a dancer or anyone that's like in fashion or like modeling or any of that stuff, but it was just thinking about, but I love like media and music and entertainment. And it was so interesting. I think there's something like special to be said about the South, of that, even though I was exposed to like all the culture of New York, it wasn't until I got to the South where I realized just how many talented people there are, like just Black people, like just making things happen, magic literally happen with nothing and no resources for the most part, right? And so you have to utilize like that creativity, that imagination, that drive, and that passion of your own to sort of kind of push you forward. And so this is not in the like script, but I know that all of you though too are all singers, yes, including you, Randy. I've seen your clips, but it's also thinking, what's your favorite song? Like, so if you were think back to like your childhood, like what was the first song that resonated with you as a like Black creative? Like what was that song that you knew that like magic existed?
I'll go, because I'll switch it up, because you guys have been going first every time. It's not fair. So let's give them time to like relish. Okay. So I think for me, my favorite song is Amazing Grace. That's just number one. That's going to always be my favorite song. But when I found what music did for me artistically, then I started to really resonate with Nina Simone. And I listened to Nina Simone from like middle school until today, and so many others. But when I was young, I remembered Nina Simone, like it just came out to me of what an artist was. So she was very instrumental in my like upbringing in the arts. So it's definitely Nina Simone. That was the most artistic influence for sure. Yeah.
I would have to say, oh gosh, asking a singer what's their favorite, that's hard. I'm gonna give you this. Anita Baker's Rapture album is so powerful. I mean, as a musician, like when you break it down, what she does vocally on that album, I mean, she's brilliant. I think I was going to that. And that album really set me free. I can remember being on the backseat of my mother's Oldsmobile and just like jamming to Anita Baker. And she kind of like taught me how to sing. I would mimic her and try to be Anita Baker. And EWF, I used to have a huge crush on Verdine White. I love EWF. They use horns, anything with horns. It just gives you that, you know? Yeah.
Randy?
Okay, for me, I was not expecting this question because, yeah, I don't portray myself as a singer, but I would say, because I grew up with two parents as ministers, and I grew up in church all my life. It's a hymn called God Sent His Son. My parents used to make me, I barely knew what was going on when people like caught the Holy Ghost or start screaming in church and like all of that. I would be like 5 or 6 years old, and they made me learn the hymn, you know, and then they pushed you in front of all the mothers of the church and sing and like all of that. So I didn't understand what was happening when people, you know, would get happy or catch, you know, the Holy Ghost from, you know, me singing that song. And till this day, I still like catch myself like in the back of my head, like, you know, humming the song while I'm like doing something, or, you know, the first That's like the first thing I would sing if someone was like, oh, give me a little something right now, you know, something like that. So to this day, I still like sing that hymn. I'm super churchy, so
That's fine, but you do sing.
Yeah, I mean a little bit.
So, but part of like that question that came to me was just thinking about like representation, right? And so thinking about like if folks don't know about the representation that other folks can exist. And so thinking about that, like how does representation look like inside of your communities? Like particularly like within your industries that you each represent.
So I'll go again because I want them to rest. I think representation for me is essential, but it needs to it needs to be from the ground up. It needs to be from the conception of the idea, and I think that's what's lacking most of the times. Most of the time in musical theater, especially, you know, you might be only Black person on stage, or you may be the only Black person in the ensemble, or that has to stop. It is just it's uncomfortable. It's just very uncomfortable. You automatically feel that no one shares the same experiences that you share. Everybody else watched Friends and you watched Girlfriends, and you don't have anything in common with these people, and that may not absolutely be true at all, you know, but you walk into a room and no one looks like you. No one has any of the same experiences as in upbringing that you do, or so you feel at least. So I think that representation has to begin from the concept of the idea. Like, who do you want to see and why? Or is that person just a token on the stage or a token in the magazine? You know, there's so many fashion editorials that are out today. And as of 2018 or 19, they finally have a African-American photographer. Is that supposed to be breaking news? No, that's sad, you know. So I think that it has to be from the beginning. Who do you want to connect with? Where does your information land? And from it, start to how you resonate, and it can later always be a replacement. But you don't always want that. You want to be right at the beginning of the idea. I want Anastacia because she's her. I want Randy because he's him. That's who I want. And I want them because he can speak to this broad of people over here, and she can speak to this sector of people. And the idea.
All right, so I think we lost Joshua for a second. Well, I'm sure they'll be able to join back in. But Anastacia and Randy, any like ideas of like what does representation look like within like your industries?
I mean, to piggyback on what Joshua was saying, I agree with him in the theater world. I mean, it has to start from the ground up. I mean, right now, during this double pandemic, the American theater has been called out full blast. A letter came out called Dear White American Theater. And it's kind of shine a spotlight on the racism and the lack of representation, not just on stage, but people who are part of crew, people who are makeup and wardrobe, people who are in the hair department, people, producers, the drama league, you know, it's within our union. And so it starts, as Joshua said, from the ground up. And I was talking to a friend today about this specific topic of how we have to change who has the keys to the kingdom, you know, and these are generational keys that have been handed down. So we have to break that cycle. And if we can't, I'm a firm believer in we have to, as Black people always do, and as Black LGBTQ plus people always do, we create then from the ground up, because then we have to create our own community over here. And it is powerful and beautiful and strong and well led. And so I think within the theater community specifically, there is some representation, but as a Black person, when you're in those dressing rooms, as Joshua said, you feel alone sometimes. You feel like you can't share your story. And then as a Black queer woman, that's a whole nother layer to it, because you're not just fighting against racism, you're fighting against, you know, if someone's homophobic, you know, within your dressing room, which has happened, you know, to me before, you know, so that's a duel within itself, and it can become very frustrating and stressful. So yeah, from the ground up is what we have to do.
No, absolutely. And Randy, like for you, like when it comes particularly like when we think about the fashion and modeling like industry, like what has that looked like?
Well, I actually stopped modeling and dealing with fashion for about 2 years while living here out of my 8 years, because I had reached such a low point mentally after, you know, going to all these castings and realizing that, you know, you're one of maybe 5 or 6 Black guys out of 100 and something guys or whatever for like a major brand or whatever, and realizing that they kind of already have in mind what they're looking for, and they already kind of have an idea of what they want their Black quota to be as far as the image that they're trying to portray as far as a brand. So all of the no's and all of the doors being shut in my face because of, you know, not only being Black, but obviously being gay, and then just looking different, like not being the ideal like Black person, you know, the curly hair and the green eyes, or that person that kind of dangles in the balance of what it is to be Black. So I really reached a low point with doing that. But, you know, after seeing how the industry did shift for a little while, about 2 years ago, I kind of decided to come back and give it another chance as far as, you know, pursuing fashion and modeling again. But like Anastacia said, it is still, you know, that possibility of like taking the keys away from who owns the industries that we, you know, that we're a part of, because it's the same Black models or the same Black, you know, fashion influencers that you see at every runway show, on every, you know, start closing and beginning of the shows. It's usually the same girls and guys, and those guys usually aren't Black at all. So, you know, representation is something that I do want to see more of. You know, thank God with everything happening. Well, not thank God, but, you know, it's like a new revolution happening right now where people are realizing that, you know, the world is bigger than, you know, the Susies and the Karens and the Katies that, you know, we're all used to seeing as the image of beauty. So
Definitely. And when we think about art being a form of activism, as an artist, like what do you advocate for, if any? Joshua? Wait, your sound isn't coming through, Joshua. So definitely. So, Anastacia, we'll come back to Joshua.
I advocate for, of course, inclusion, visibility, the understanding of what inclusion and visibility means, because I don't think a lot of people truly understand that at its core, and how that can better a lot of our communities. I think one of the big things I've been advocating for during this time is helping our being from the South and being from like Joshua and Randy, being from religious families, and advocating for people who, how do I say this? People in my community, in my home community, the religious community, who don't understand the LGBTQ plus community. They understand gay, right? They understand straight, but they don't understand the vastness and the variety of our community, and the beauty of our community. And so advocating for those people, advocating for trans people within the religious community, advocating for queer Black women, you know, in the religious community, because their voices aren't heard enough. And I think sometimes being from religious families, for those of us that are part of the LGBTQ plus community, you know, we are silenced and not listened to, and we are told that we can't be a part of a religious institution because we are gay, queer, trans, bi, asexual, and just, you know, which is not true. So just advocating for those voices, because sometimes it's easier for me to walk into a room in a religious setting. You know, people aren't quick to judge me. They aren't quick to say no to me. And I can sit down with them calmly and say, hey, you know, and that's to me what intersectionality is about, you know, and then helping them understand that, especially for our Black straight men. You know, I feel like they need a whole lot more education sometimes. And I feel okay with walking in and say, let's talk. Why do you feel this way? Why do you feel threatened? Why don't you understand? Why aren't you allowing yourself to understand? So yeah.
No, that's amazing.
I advocate for basically some of the same things that Anastacia was saying, because, you know, coming from a household where both of my parents are ministers, I was so afraid to even tell my parents how I felt, or, you know, the thought of them excommunicating me from the family or never talking to me again. All of those things, you know, played in the back of my psyche all my life. So reaching a point where they did accept me fully, which I was completely surprised, and accepted my boyfriend, all of these things, I want people to also understand, and I advocate for people understanding their privilege, because even as a gay Black man, that's still a privilege that my family wants to love me, wants to love my boyfriend, wants me to have, you know, a healthy relationship. A lot of people don't have that. So I want to continue to use my platform to advocate for people who don't have the privilege that I have, who aren't able to walk in a room, like Anastacia said, and they don't immediately judge me. I mean, outside of, you know, if I'm dressed, you know, super fat, you know, super something or whatever, outside of all of that, just tear me down to like, just, you know, what I am as a man. You know, I want to advocate for people who don't have those privileges, basically.
No, definitely. Shout out to Marco.
That's the boo thing.
All right, and welcome back, Joshua. So we were talking about like advocacy and like what is it that like you advocate for, if anything.
Great. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can.
I feel like I'm actually literally on a commercial. I just literally logged off my phone, my computer, and now I'm on my phone. I was saying, I'll just go quickly because I'm sure there's so much more to say. I was saying that I feel like that being Black, that makes me an advocate every single day. Every single day. Okay. I am Black in this country. I am gay in this country. People are shot and killed in this country who look like us. There's a female on the panel here today, Breonna Taylor. I mean, there's so many. I am Black. Okay. So every single day that I walk in my shoes, I am a walking billboard of what it means to be an activist. My art is just the icing on the cake for it. What I use the art for, of course, is activism. And I just try to use my art to reflect the time in which we live in. We live in a time where people who look like us are dying every single day, and cops keep their guns and they get off. So you best believe you will always hear something from me in this time that is racially motivated, because that is a reflection of the time that we live in. So I try to just use art to do what it is made to do, to educate and to reflect the world that we live in. If I'm just literally, I mean, I can't imagine art for anything else right now. I mean, even sports have come to a complete halt. They were at some point. So it's just like, I feel like at some point the art has to go from here I am, this is me, look at me, to here I am, I stand for this. So I use art to always make a stand, and to always make a stand in the direction of what's happening today.
No, thank you. And speaking of using art for that, thinking about like, so taking a more broader like approach outside of like your industries, right? But like, what does health and wellness look like? And like, what role does that play in your industry?
Woo, child, big role. Here's the thing. I've been trying to, so I'm between therapists, as I tell people, and I've been trying to find a new Black queer therapist, preferably someone who is in their 50s or up, and but they're all taken. Why? Because, like Joshua said, it's not just within our art. Health and wellness is something that is playing a big role in our Black community as a whole right now. I feel like everyone is running to a therapist, which is great. There are many groups that are getting together and just holding sessions for Black women, for Black trans women, for Black trans men, for Black queer folk, because we need that. We're not just dealing with being, a part of the community. We're dealing with being walking around with tags on our back just because of the color of our skin. And so I think it plays a big part in, especially like going to work some days. I've called out of shows because I need a mental health day, because I don't want to deal with the microaggressions of whiteness. I don't want to deal with the covert and overt, racism. And the covert really gets me because I don't realize it till later. Because sometimes I'm just not in that mindset. I'm there to create. I'm there to tell a story. I'm there to evoke change, to educate. And so it hits me later. And then I have to process that, I think also too, being from the South, being from, a religious community, we don't realize till we're adults, the traumas that ensued as children that we're not dealing with until adults, because maybe an incident happens that we're like, oh, why does this seem so familiar? And why am I so, and it's like, oh God, that happened as a child. And now I got to deal with that now. So I think it plays a huge part just in our lives as Black folks. And I'm so proud to say that I hear us talking about mental health, especially, so much more within our Black community, because it's needed.
Absolutely. Randy, Joshua?
Yeah, health and wellness for me personally, it's just my get up and go, like every day. Like I literally work out all the time. That's just kind of, it's kind of outside of just aesthetics at this point. It's kind of like what keeps me day to day. It's me, lifting this weight instead of letting someone have it over something that they said, like a microaggression that I may not have noticed, but 30 minutes later, I'm, fuming, ready to go back to where that person was to let them have it. So outside of that, health and wellness, as far as like making sure that we're covered as a community, as far as, sexual health, and making sure that we're doing everything that we can to make sure that personally that we're taken care of. So sexually, health and fitness wise, and make sure that we're, eating correctly, because we as a people, we love to have our, whatever it is we love to have, we love to have that.
All of it.
I still literally cornbread fed, collard greens and cabbage, like all of that, and I love that. And I love that about our culture. But at the same time, we are the leading, group with COVID, even though I know we may talk about that, with pre-existing conditions. So it starts from the ground up with us being just a healthier people in general.
Yes, and I can attest to that as well. I think, I'm also a Pilates instructor, and that alone is a part of wellness. You see so many, even in that aspect of my life, I'm often the only person of color in that room, especially as a Pilates instructor. I mean, it's so rare to even see anyone Black walk in the room. And I think about so many things that culminate with what it means to be, with health and wellness. And I think there's just such a disconnect with our community and what wellness means. And I really have to feed off Anastacia. And there's so many people like think of someone like Issa Rae, who has such a huge platform and what she's doing with her show. The front and center of that show, especially in this latest season, is the fact that Molly hadn't dealt with her issues. And that was like front and center, and it affected the rest of her life because she never dealt with those things. And so I feel like when it comes to us as African Americans, we have to understand what wellness really means and what health and wellness really means. Does it really mean that I need this gel set, or does it really mean that I'm going to go and sit on my mat? Like, I mean, it's really just that it's a real conversation, because we have not been educated on that. I mean, we haven't. We growing up, I mean, I think yoga took off in the early 2000s, but I didn't see any Black people in the room. I mean, we weren't educated in those things. I mean, even as I said, as a Pilates instructor, when I couple wellness with it, I mean, we're not even in the room. And another thing is that we're also priced out. We're often priced out of so many things. A Pilates session, a private, is about $135 for 55 minutes. There's not many African Americans that may be a single parent. I was raised by a single parent who put 3 of her children through school, including herself, and has a master's degree. However, she was not able to do all of that and, and go get a Pilates session at the same time, because that was not affordable. It wasn't even a part of, honey, listen, there was no wellness. Okay. That was not a part of it. So now I think it's just going a step further and understanding that the wellness that you now know, it's putting that in your community and seeing that in your community, so that people like us don't have to go through what we went through when we were younger. So take what you learn and bring it back to your community, even if you have to cheapen the price a little, even if you have to bring it down a little, because what's the greater good happening here? That exposure to someone who's a little bit younger than you, who understands how to process thought and how to think critically when they get older and someone makes a microaggression or someone says something to them, or when someone touches their hair without asking, then then you know how to navigate that, versus doing what's expected, which is bouncing off, because it is expected of us. I'm convinced it is expected for us to bounce off, to retaliate, to offer something, and there's always a rebuttal from us. That is what is expected. What is not expected is to process thought in a way that is critical, in a way that you literally have been participating in health and wellness, and in a way that you can communicate effectively. And that is what we have to bring back to our community, so that when the person becomes angry, we already have enough to be angry about. We walk down the street, you think we did it. I have enough to be angry about if I really wanted to. But how can we communicate effectively, even when we're innocent, which is 99.999% of the time?
Yeah, no, seriously. And I think part of it that everyone has mentioned is thinking about accessibility, right? And so if you don't have access to like better improve like your health and wellness, then you're already at the deficit, right? And so then we enter into these conversations from a deficit, right? And from the disparities of, as Randy was saying, like leading, being the number ones or the number twos inside of these like different areas of health and wellness. And often what I like try to stress to people, particularly like with MOBI, is that like when we look at like Black and queer folks, is that you have to look at us like holistically. And oftentimes when people think of Black gay men or Black queer people, they always automatically go to what? Sexual health. But before sexual health is HIV. And it's just thinking that like there's so many other things that like we have to address. And I'm happy that like you all shared like sort of kind of what those other areas are, right? So mental health, fitness, nutrition, Pilates, exercise, like being able to know and care for. And it's like taking those moments of self-care for your body, right? Like there's also been research that has shown literally that like that like stress has been passed down through like generations, right? And trauma has been passed down through generations. And when we think about particularly Black women, so our mothers, our grandmothers, our great-grandmothers, and their mothers, and folks before them that who have passed on like that stress. And when we think about like the infant mortality rates, when we think about like all of these things that like we're already again like entering into a world at a deficit. And so it's then thinking about how do we continue to thrive? How do we continue to survive? And expand people's focus, particularly for Black people, when it comes to health and wellness, and for them to want to make it accessible for us so that we actually have access to prevent instead of like treating certain things or just getting on medications because like our doctors aren't talking to us about like how to lower your cholesterol. It's like, just get on this medication. And so not knowing that like once you're on that medication, then you have to, be on that forever. And it's just thinking about like, what are those conversations that we don't have, or that aren't treated or talked about early. So definitely thinking about that. I know that COVID-19 came up. Hell, she's still here. But it's also just thinking about how has that like impacted like your communities and like for like your friends and within your industry, like so personally and like amongst like your colleagues, like how has COVID-19 impacted you?
For me, with as far as my industry goes, Broadway shut down March 12th, I think it was. I can't even remember anymore. And I was in a new show called Carolina Change, the revival of it. And we were going to start our previews the next day. And so I haven't stepped on a stage in 7 to 8 months, I think now. But I will say it definitely has affected the theater industry. I mean, the theater industry across the board, off Broadway, off Broadway, it is a $1 billion industry. And so I think it has affected New York drastically. You go down to the theater district, restaurants have closed. So all those people working in restaurants, and like I said before, when we were talking about representation, it's not just actors, it's people who work crew, it's makeup and hair and wardrobe designers. I think, I don't even know the number, but so many costume shops here in New York City are either have closed or they are going to have to close because they can't afford the rent anymore. It's just sad. I think the arts have been affected so hard during this time. And what makes it worse is that here in New York, where people come here to be artists across the board, I feel like the city hasn't really helped to revive the theater industry in that world. Specifically, people have moved away from New York. I think people are really considering, do I want to be an artist anymore? And I think when you have that calling to be an artist, whatever you are, if you're a fashion designer, if you're a singer, if you're a model, when you have that calling, it's something that you can't resist doing and being a part of. So art is going to get made. Things are going to get created. I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to come out of this year, next year, whether it be plays or musicals, or, you know, we already have some new projects on TV that are giving us life and that are filled with diverse casts. But it has affected us a lot. And on top of which, you know, our community has lost people to the virus. And friends of mine, including me, myself, I've lost family members. And then, you know, friends of mine have lost family members to the virus. Yeah. And I guess the takeaway for me is, as an artist, as a creative, as an activist too, is we have to find ways to find the light in this darkness, because it's very dark right now. And that's what's so great about Black artists specifically. You know, we find that light, we hold on to it, and we allow something to bloom from it. And so that's what I'm truly looking forward to, is what's going to bloom from that light.
I definitely feel like it's going to be like a renaissance that happens. It's going to be an outpouring of creativity and just people wanting to, you know, let out their creativity, because everything's been so stifled for the past couple of months. Like, I haven't booked a job since the end, well, a paying, like, you know, regular job I would get outside of COVID since about the ending of last year. Like, I've shot twice, but that took 7 months before I number one was comfortable with being in front of a photographer that I didn't really know, and two, like, you know, learning about, you know, the current state of what we're dealing with. So it's definitely I've definitely been affected financially. My job, I lost that in March due to COVID. And I thank God that I haven't had anyone directly affected in my family by it. But I definitely empathize with anyone who's lost anyone over this virus, because for a certain amount, we didn't know what was even going on, because from the top down, we weren't being fed what we needed to be fed as, a nation. So, yeah, I do feel like we're going to bounce back stronger than we have ever been before, but it probably won't be the same for a very long time. And we as creatives are going to have to be ready to, ride the wave of change. And we've done that, but, it's just been hard for all of us. So.
Oh, we lost Josh. But we will just continue we're getting close towards the end, and definitely just want to, have a conversation about what would you like to see currently that you do not see in today's. Welcome back.
Here we are again. Here we are.
It's literally, it's almost like a production now.
It's over me. It's over me. It's over me. It's
this is our art that we're.
You did not book the job. You didn't book it.
But, what would you like to see? So bringing us to just our final question before we do last remarks. But what would you like to see that you currently do not see in today's entertainment media landscape?
Okay, I'll go since I missed the last one. I think for me, I would like to see more people start creating. I mean, I'm 100% honest about that, because especially as African Americans, because we often hear that there's a lack of for us. Even myself, oh, there's not this, or this person is not Black, so I can't go in for this, or they're not trying to see us for that, but there's only one. Create it. You just have to, you can start creating it. And now with the power of social media, I mean, you can have a bigger audience than a producer can have. It's really, I mean, I'm not saying it happens overnight. I'm just saying, I mentioned Issa Rae before, because I try to always model those people, because they know how it works. When you look at someone like that and you say, what do they possess that I don't? It's absolutely nothing. They just were bold enough to put themselves out there and do it. And putting yourself out there gives you the ability to be seen by someone that could help you. So I think it's really good to just continue to create, even if it's just in your living room. I mean, I move my couch, I dance. Honey, listen, I take a ballet class in here. I use the counter. I've used the stove. Okay, listen, you name it, because at the end of the day, I was born an artist. So I don't need to wait on someone to give me the opportunity to create art. If I'm an artist, it's my job to create it. Now, that's whether you're paid for it or not. You may not be paid for that, because I often don't like to give my art that much weight. I think that I was given this ability to create art to not only entertain, but to help. So you know what? I can't give it that much weight to say it's my art's responsibility to pay all my bills, pay my student loans, take care of my rent, my electricity bill, put me in the room, pay that. It's okay if it doesn't. It's okay, because it's up to me to continue creating. And eventually my creativity will make room for itself, and doors will open that I thought, oh my gosh, I could never get in this room. But it could be that one thing. I mean, just for me, Pilates has gotten me into more rooms for theater than you would ever possibly imagine. Why? Because choreographers take Pilates. Well, I never thought, oh my gosh, I should take Pilates. You know why? I should be a Pilates instructor because I want to. No, it just dawned on me that it resonates with dancers. So when you work with the choreographer, well, how are you? I'm great. What are you doing next? Great. And before you know it, you're in the room. You're in the room. And I had nothing. You didn't audition. You didn't do anything. You just created art. So I always encourage everyone, and just to wrap mine up, create, keep creating. Don't stop creating. It's no one's responsibility to give you a job. If you want a job, create your own work, and you can give someone else a job. I mean, that's really how it would work. I mean, if you look at Tyler Perry, this man has created a multi-billionaire industry and has purchased property that we would never be thought of purchasing. And now, not only can you shoot everything on your own property and premises, I can charge you to shoot your film on mine as well. So then you are not only funneling money into the Black industry, you're also creating wealth. So I am always about creating, and I'm going to encourage everyone who is watching or who watches this later, honey, do not stop creating, because you never know when your time will come. But if you don't have anything to offer, if they say, hey, I'm looking for a TV show, and you've only got 2 pages of a script, then yours ain't going in. So start creating and have it ready and readily accessible, and use social media to push you and propel you to the next thing. So create.
Yeah, I agree with you, Joshua. Create. And we have to also remember we have the resources right within our community. Sometimes we try to outsource, as I call it, and be like, I have to go over here to this specific community to say, I need this money, or can you come? And it's like, no. We have the resources within. We have the production manager, we have the DP, we have the director, we have the writers, we have it all. We have the resources and the money. We just got to ask for it. And I think that's one thing as Black people we got to stop doing is not saying that you need help. I need help with this. I wrote this amazing thing. Can you read it for me? Can you take a look at this? This is my vision. What do you think? And be okay with sharing. There are some folk you can't trust, but be okay with sharing your ideas and realizing, oh, we can all go up this ladder together and tell amazing, diverse stories. Okay. So I agree. Create, and don't hold yourself back. Do not hold. I always say the only one that can hold you back is you. If you're standing in your way, you're the only one to blame. So.
Ooh, words. Randy.
I literally was about to say self-doubt, because even to this day, me creating, shooting my fashion or whatever it is, I still go through those moments of oh, should I post it? Now I'm gonna do it later. Then I get excited about it again. And then I'm like, nah, that was stupid. I don't want to do that. But it's literally the magic that we have as Black people. We have an innate gift that other people just don't have. And I think we as a people need to really start believing in that, nurturing that, cultivating that energy. When they say Black girl magic and Black boy joy, all that stuff's real. So once we do our due diligence and start pushing out and creating what, like my co-panelist said, we just have to keep creating, period.
No. And what are you going to say? I saw the lean. It's like...
No, I was just, oh Lord, I didn't forget now. I was just going to say, also, we have to remember we are the originators of so many things in the artistic world as Black people. You look at what our ancestors created, what they invented. And I think we forget that. We forget how magical we are and how sometimes things are appropriated and changed up a little bit to make us forget. But we have to remember that we are the originators.
So speaking of originators, thank you all for your gifts, your talent, your visibility of making it possible and being these possibility models for other Black, queer, LGBTQ plus folks. The work that you each are doing, all different, but all amazing, all rooted in purpose. And I definitely think that it goes to show again, what magic can happen if we are able to continue to believe, right? Continue to know that it needs to exist despite a global pandemic, despite the no's, despite systematic racism, despite every other health and wellness issue and disparity that the world have given us. It really is just thinking that for me, being one at GLAAD and with MOBI and working with Southern AIDS Coalition, to cultivate and have this panel, I wanted to showcase a variety of industries, right? Because you all have your different takes and how you enter it, and we're not a monolith. When it comes to Black queer folks, we deserve to be seen in different atmospheres, and again, just letting people know that it's worth it, and that at the end of the day, you just have to continuously believe within yourself to make that possible. So while we get ready to wrap up, is there any closing words that you want to just share to anyone that's watching this now or maybe watching it later?
Don't give up.
Don't give up.
Don't give up. I'm telling you, because as soon as you decide to give up, you'll be one yes away from changing your life. So
I'm just going to say that. Just don't give up. Keep going. Just keep going. Literally keep going. Keep going. We have no, I've been a hot mess express all night, but honey, I kept going. And here we are. Look at that. Here we are. But you have to keep going. I mean, literally, but that's just true. It's going to be bumpy. It might be a mess. I mean, listen, but you have to keep going. I'm sure if we saw works from people who we admire today from 10 years ago, we'd be like, what in the world? But you have to keep going. And so I say, you know, tonight was a hot mess over here. But you know what? If you keep going and you literally just follow your own yellow brick road, you will find success. Whatever that is for you, define it and create it for yourself. Don't let anyone else hold you to their standard of it.
Thank you.
I would say be the adult you needed as a child. I work with a lot of children, and as a child, I needed someone to hold my hand in certain aspects. So be the adult you needed as a child, because you never know where that child is and where they might be going.
Wow. Okay, woo, that was a real wow.
I'm sure. Look.
It's like y'all are
Speak to my heart, girl.
Marvell, anyone else out there, like we will need a part 2, 3, and 4. But we're going to continue this conversation at a later date, I'm sure. But thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Southern AIDS Coalition, for having us here tonight for SOS 2020, the virtual Black print. Thank you again. Until the next time, please stay connected to Southern AIDS Coalition and the amazing work that they are doing for all future events and happenings. You can visit SouthernAIDScoalition.org and to find out more about SOS 2021, which is now at the bottom of your screens. Go to the SOSexperience.org. Until next time, be safe. Thank you all. Have a good night.